All right, so we have a really bad fake news alert, and it's global news. And again, global is kind of famous for doing this kind of stuff in that they'll put out a poll, or so they'll say, I mean, this is a perfect example right here. Let's just talk about it. They say a recent poll found that 65% of Canadians surveyed said they supported a lockdown in their province during Christmas and New Year's to tackle the pandemic. Would you support a holiday lockdown to help slow the spread of you know what? And again, their own poll shows that the exact opposite is true. 63.4 say no, only 34.4 say yes. And the other thing you have to keep in mind here is that I seen this poll like an hour after they put it out, and the numbers were like the exact opposite. It was like it was like this, right? And so there's clearly some manipulation going on too. I mean, if you read through the comments too, you'll see people that said, "Yeah, I voted really early," and it's very weird that an hour after the polls put out, there's already, 2,000 votes, and 24 hours later, there's this many votes, right? It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't make any sense too that the first couple thousand or thousand people that vote, their opinion is so much different than the rest of everyone's, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So they clearly manipulated their own poll. My guess is that the real number is probably like 80, 90%, because again, um, I know hardly anyone. Like I've talked to hardly anyone who actually supports this kind of stuff. And this is the thing too. I know people who are really paranoid about this virus. I know people that again they watch the mainstream media every day, but yet they still want to have Christmas, right? They still want to have Christmas. So again, it's absolute insanity that they're actually suggesting this kind of stuff because it's complete bunk. It is complete bunk. Um, and I think people are probably wondering, well, why have things gotten so bad recently over the last year or so? It's mostly the mainstream media. Like this is the thing that one of the biggest things I've been trying to get across in this channel is trying to communicate to people just how bad the mainstream media is. Like just how bad the mainstream media is. And here's the thing, the one thing that people bring up too is that they don't necessarily outright lie to you. One of the biggest tricks and things that the mainstream media does is just lies by omission. They just don't talk about things that don't fit the narrative. So they're not necessarily lying that much, but because they're not bringing stuff up, they're kind of lying, right? Um, and not to mention too that their famous way of doing things is always to take people out of context, right? It's or to look at a group of people, pick the craziest one, and ascribe everybody else onto that person, right? Like, you know, I was talking to a family member the other day, and they're one of the zombies who watch the mainstream media all the time, and then like, can you believe it? There's people at these protests who think the virus doesn't exist. Ha ha ha! They're so stupid. And I thought to myself, number one, they're less crazy than you, uh, and number two, most of the people at these protests, that's not what they're saying. They simply want their lives to get back to normal, right? So this is what they do: is that they take the craziest person possible of the group, and they assume that everybody else holds those beliefs. Like we never do that for anything else. And the minute you suggest doing that the other way around, people absolutely freak out on you, right? Absolutely freak out on you. Um, so again, like I say, that's kind of how the mainstream media does it. Number one, it's just lies by omission. They just don't talk about it. Number two, it's just misleading people. So again, the mainstream media can act in an incredibly biased way without actually having to outright lie to people. And this is something that it's so hard for the average normie out there to wrap their heads around, is because they think that the only way for them to be biased is to outright lie to people. But that's not the no. Again, they do outright lie quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as much as what people that would fall in people like mine's camp would think, right? The biggest things they do is lies by omission, and then secondly, misleading, straw manning, that kind of stuff. That is what they do. So like I say, and this is another piece of evidence too. Like I've been bringing up a lot lately that the majority of people do not support this garbage. The majority of people do not support this garbage. And the thing, I've been, and this is the other thing too that I think just has kind of proven me right in that I was ahead of the curve on this one. Like I was ahead of the curve on this one. I've been saying for a while that the majority of people don't support the lockdowns, but the majority of people just go along with it. that's the biggest problem. The majority of people just go along with it. And like I brought up a lot before, but I think it's important, so I'll bring it up again. For the people that are getting together at Christmas, you can't stay silent about this kind of stuff anymore. This is no longer minor political disagreements. Like I brought up a million times, it seems. This is literally, should you have the right to earn an honest living? Should you have the right to see your family? Like, come on. Like, should you have the right to um, to do basic things, like basic things. Again, so like I say, it's not a minor political disagreement, and anybody who tries to treat it that way, they are one of the most, kind of the most spineless, gutless people you can possibly imagine. Um, so like I say, like, and here's the thing too, like this poll is getting even more and more slanted. Like, when I voted on this yesterday, it was like 50-50. I looked this morning, it was like 57. Now it's 63. So again, like the vast majority of people do not support this garbage, and this is the reason why I'm bringing this up. Another reason, I mean, is I think one of the reasons why a lot of people are afraid to speak up when it comes to this kind of stuff is that they think that there's going to be a lot of pushback, which there will be to an extent, but it's never as bad as it's rarely as bad as what you think it is. And number two, the majority of people agree with you. Like, the majority of people agree with you. So why are you afraid to speak up? Why are you afraid to speak up when you know the majority of people agree with you? It doesn't make any sense in my mind. Um, So the next thing I wanted to bring up here is from Dan Dix, and he points out PEI recorded 4 new cases, which is causing them to introduce a circuit breaker lockdown because of 4 cases. This is insanity. Again, this is what I brought up to. This has nothing to do with the virus. This has nothing to do with the virus. This is entirely about government power. This is entirely about government power. Because if it was about safety, they wouldn't be locking down a province over 4 cases. Now, yeah, I understand they're a small province, but on the flip side, it's 4 cases. They should be very, very easy to track. Very easy to track when it's only 4 people. Like, come on. I could do that. Again, so exactly like I brought up, this is not about people's safety. This is not about saving lives. This is entirely about control, government power, all that kind of stuff. And again, until more people wake up to this, I don't see things getting much better. I don't see things getting much better until more people wake up. This is from No More Lockdowns on Twitter, saying Ontario is in lockdown because we must preserve hospital capacity to save lives, says the health minister. Then September 2020, Ontario lays off 97 nurses in Christine Elliott's district. What capacity? Again, this is just one of the many reasons why the whole hospitals are overwhelmed, or they're going to be overwhelmed argument is absolutely insane. Because if they were, or you projected them to be, why would you lay off nurses? Why would you lay off nurses? There's no legitimate answer that you can come up with that. Like, there is no legitimate answer that you can come up with that. So again, I have to default to the reason that they're doing it, is because they're not overwhelmed and they just want more power, right? If anything, they're probably underwhelmed, which is probably why they're laying these people off, because they're not as busy as they normally are. I've heard this from a lot of areas that their hospitals are less busy than what they normally are. You look at LA County, like I pointed out yesterday, the hospitals are less busy than they normally are. I've talked to a couple people in person that, yeah, they've said, yeah, things are pretty much normal. Pretty much normal. If the mainstream media wasn't constantly spewing out propaganda, they wouldn't notice a difference. So again, is there some hospitals that have been very high when it comes to the capacity? Yeah. But as a whole, not even close. As a whole, the hospitals have not even been close to being overwhelmed. Even in New York, the area that was one of the hardest hit areas in the world, there, that extra field hospital that Trump, sent in, they didn't even see a patient. The hardest hit area in the world. I mean, I don't know if it is still, but at the time, they had like 30,000 people die in the first couple months or 2 or 3 months of this stuff, and they didn't need them. They didn't need them. Again, so this idea that, oh, the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed, it is literally the boy who cried wolf on steroids. It is the boy who cried wolf on steroids here. This whole hospitals are going to be overwhelmed situation. And the last thing I wanted to bring up here is from Paul Mitchell, and he quotes Global News saying, Neo World War II Germans, white supremacists, and anti government extremists in particular have been using you know what conspiracy theories to attract followers, raise money, and encourage violence. And then he says, Global News is a disgrace. That is all. And again, it's a classic, never let a good crisis go to waste scenario. Not only are they using it as an excuse to expand their own power, they're using it as an excuse to smear anyone who disagrees with them. And again, like I brought up in the first story here, this is what the mainstream media does. Notice they say all these, World War II Germans, white supremacists and anti-government extremists, and then um, tie them in with any, what conspiracy theories, meaning what they're trying to do here is basically saying if you are questioning the the scenario or the narrative when it comes to the what virus, that makes you one of these kind of people, right? That makes you one of these kind of people. And that's how they get you. That's how they get you too, because they know the average person's too stupid to actually look into things for themselves. They know the average person's dumb enough to believe, whatever they see on the mainstream media. So that's how they get away with this kind of stuff, right? Like if you want to question, again, how does that make any sense to us all? Like, how does that make any sense whatsoever? Like, since when? Like, here's the thing, if like do you actually think that if a real World War II German was around right now, whose side do you think they would be on? Whose side do you think they'd be on the side of the people that want to force everybody to stay home and arrest people who dissent, or the people who want life to be normal? Would you think they'll be on the side of people who don't want free speech or do want free speech? You think they'd be on the side of the people that do want the right to peaceably assemble, or the people that don't? You have to be borderline insane. You're dumber than a fence post if you can't answer that question. And again, for anybody that hasn't, they would be on the side of the mainstream media, the government, and the people who want the lockdowns. Like, it's so. Do you honestly, like, again, like, how the tides have turned? The modern day World War II Germans are people that want free speech, that want the right to peaceably assemble, that want the right to earn an honest living, that don't want to arrest people who dissent. Like, how the tables have sure turned, right? Again, it's just absolute insanity that how people take these people seriously is beyond me. Like, beyond me, how people take them seriously. Like, seriously, like, how, like, for lack of a better word, dumb do you have to be to take these people seriously? All you have to do is do 5 minutes of research outside the echo chamber, and you would realize how insane they are. But again, people just don't do it. Like, people just don't do it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I say, check out those links. Stay tuned for more and have a good day.